No, it's recording right now, though. So, no, I'm sorry? I am recording it right now, so you can listen to this over and over and over and over again all night long and all day tomorrow if you'd like. If you're going to take this exam, it's going to be at 3 o'clock tomorrow, and you guys hopefully are going to take it. I will have a short break before the exam, so we'll have a lunch, probably later lunch, and we'll have at least an hour of study time, hour and a half preferably, for you to go through your notes and study for the exam tomorrow, right before taking it, so you don't have to be sitting in here all morning and then, have to take an exam right after that. So the biggest question most people are asking is, what do you have to study? So, first of all, no source code writing. No questions about source code writing. There's 25 multiple choice questions. There's 15 short answer questions. Multiple choice questions are of the same content, same format as the short answer. Short answer questions, what example did I give earlier? Something about, oh yeah. Let me give you an example of, this is not one of the questions, but let me give you an example of the format of the questions. Multiple choice is multiple choice. That everyone's familiar with. What I mean by short answer is one or two responses. One or two kind of responses that you could possibly do. As an example, if I said, what programming language is used for programming the Android? You'd probably write the word Java down there, or Java programming or something. You probably could say Java and XML or something, but all I'm looking for in that particular case is Java. It's not like writing an entire diatribe of a paragraph or something. It's like one or two word type of answers. But it's not asking you, it's not like fill in the blank. The blank, blank, blank is the blank, blank, and you have to fill in the blanks. That's a little bit harder. Instead, as another example, it's like, what format is the strings.xml file in? XML? I mean, not that easy, but that's an example. I will tell you one thing, and you want to look at, is, well, let me go through the entire thing here, but let me start in with the content now, as I start in through here. So, what you want to do is go through, in fact, I've opened this up on the website. If I were to study for this exam, what would I do? I would come over to the Android phone application development website, and I'd go right here where it says Spring 2013 videos. No, I wouldn't go there. I'd go into the lectures, and then I see I've got lectures, and then I got tutorials, and then I got lecture notes. All of the questions come out of this section. So what you want to do is, and also the other thing you could do is review some of the material that we went through, some of those tutorials. There are no questions that ask you to write any source code. You don't have to know anything about Java either. No Java questions outside of features associated with Android. But no source code writing, no source, not even on the short answer. There's nothing related to source code. There's no source code questions. No method questions, nothing. However, you want to know the basic concepts. A starting point would be the beginning lecture, so lecture number 1. Some of them are PowerPoint, some of them are PDFs. I have several questions about the life cycle of the app, which is the main component. So if you were to open up an Android app and you look at it, that's another way. If you've done the assignments, you'll ace this exam because you would have worked with all of these concepts. If somebody else did these assignments for you, you're probably going to have a problem with the exam because you're not going to know what in the world I'm talking about. But we have the on create, the on destroy, on resume. If you remember that little thing, I showed you a little flow chart that had like, all the different stages of the app. The app life cycle is a core concept. There's several questions related to the app and the app life cycle. Several questions related to the app construction, the use of the strings, the use of the menus, the use of the layouts, the folder that were, things were the resource concept. Knowing that we have the r.java resource file that's auto-generated and how the resource files are used. The different types of, I'm not going to say, well, how many different types of high definition are there? It's not like that. It's not like rote memory in terms of having to know all of the different names of folders and stuff like that. It's not like that. It's bigger picture, more conceptual based. If you've built an Android project, you're familiar with the r.java file and the fact that it's auto-generated. You're also probably familiar with the fact that everything is done in XML that shows up in the r.java file. You're probably familiar with the things like the onCreate method. The fact that the name of the class activity, you're extending activity, you know, and as an activity. There's different types. If you go through the beginning of the lectures, you'll see that there's different types of apps. There's services, there's broadcast receivers, broadcast senders, there's all of these different things that are concept-wise that are associated with the different types of things that you can create. We've been working with a lot of activities in this class, obviously, because everything, like 90%, is usually activity-based. We've also worked with some of the other ones, so take a look at that. It's in lecture 1, 2, and 3. There's a lot of concepts in there. You also want to be familiar with not necessarily the emulator, but with the APK file, the fact that it produces an APK file. It's in the bin directory. You don't necessarily have to know how to install it or anything like that. You don't need to know anything about signatures or anything like that. But there's a couple of concept bases on the Delvik, I can never say that word. The concept of the program running as a single thread, which leads into the concept of intents. There's questions about intents. We looked at how to load intents like 3 different ways. There's questions about model view controller. There's questions about service provider, content providers. There's questions on SQLite as a database, connecting to a database. It's not technical questions, it's concept. As an example, can 5 apps connect to the same database? Actually, good question. Can 5 apps connect to the same database?
Then you have different instances they can.
No. The answer is no. Every app has its own database. Oh no. Look at the database stuff. Each app actually has its own instances of everything. Can you share files among different apps?
Yes.
How? Content provider, yes. I'm actually going to get into some of that lecture stuff as well. You cannot take a file and pass it between apps unless you take it as data, parse the data, send it between an app and an app using an intent, some sort of a passer kind of content. But you can load up things in a content provider, an address book, and a shared content. I'm actually going to review some of this stuff as well. So the later part of today is all about reviewing these concepts. Some of them are. I'm hitting some concepts we haven't seen yet, but long story short, it's concepts that you would have picked up by participating in the tutorials that we've done in class, by doing the assignments, by having some exposure to Android. So if you don't have any exposure to it, you haven't done it, you haven't been here, you're not going to have a good chance. But if you have been here, for you guys will be acing it because it's not hard. It's just, if you've been participating, you've been showing up, you haven't been like out to lunch the entire day and coming back and just signing in attendance and leaving again, then you'll be in good shape. Those people who have been out, they're out. They're not going to pass it. But long story short, you will. Because it's not hard. It's just on the basic concepts. I can't give you examples of questions and people are going to go, well, what are the questions? Just think about everything that we've been doing. There's no source code writing. But the concept of the life cycles, the concept of the different types of activity, the concept of the activity, know what an activity is, know what an intent is. Actually, let's talk about the listeners, for example, observer. Knowing how to do action listeners. Knowing, including an action listener, the different ways of doing an action listener. What about, let's say, for example, the different layouts, relative, linear layouts, the different types of layouts. So what the examples are going to be, the multiple choice is going to say, the following are example layouts that you can use for an Android project. And it'll say like relative, all of the following are except for one. Pick the one that's not or something. And then you'll see relative, linear, whatever. And then you'll see my obscure layout or something that doesn't belong, Or you'll see, these are different types of, to send a message out to the screen, you would use a toast message or something, and then the following is an example of a something or other, or let's talk about, different types of menus and different types of dialogues or something. I'm not going to ask you specifics about the programming part of it. You can get by the entire exam without knowing anything about programming. What you want to know about is, have I looked at this Android stuff before? Have I built a project before? If you've built a project, you've done the homework, you've looked at this stuff before, it's easy exam, extremely easy. So, questions about the exam. The best way to learn, what you need to learn is, if you haven't done this already, is go back and relive the last three sessions, the last 2 sessions. How do you do that? You go back through all the tutorials and all of the notes. This is probably the long way of doing it. If you had attended the last 3, if you had attended the last 2 weekends, I should say, then you should be in good shape. Everything comes out of the last 2 weekends, hardly anything out of today. In fact, there's probably nothing on maps, actually. Hardly anything comes out of today. It's primarily on the first 2 weekends of the course. And all of the tutorials that we've covered are right in through here. And it's a lot of reading to do if you're going to do it. So some people have emailed me and they say, well, what book do we need? There's no book. Do you need a book with all this stuff? You don't need a book. Plus, if you get a book, it's going to be outdated 2 weeks after you buy the book, which is the problem with these books. If you are looking for books and for reading in the course materials directory, well, all right, forget that. Yeah, forget that concept. Android developer.android.com, the best thing to look at. 1 or 2 questions on testing. It comes from the testing assignment that you did, JUnit testing, stuff like that. 1 or 2 questions on the assignments that we have done. Questions that related to the assignment. If you have done the assignment, you should be able to answer the question. It's like extremely easy questions. So, questions about the questions? As you're looking at a blank screen here. What happened to my internet access? That's my question. No questions on threading or processes. No. Oh, I thought I had it back. No questions on maps. Actually, this is your opportunity right now. Who's Sutanu's? Sutanu's iPhone. Can I connect to that? It looks like there's a key here. I don't know. Maybe you have a tethering thing going on? I don't know. Alright. Oh, look, I have internet access again. I'm back. So, let's see. I was going to find you a link for Android sources. I don't think I have anything in here, actually. Supplemental notes. The supplemental notes are going to be a little outdated. Actually, these are the older ones. There's a ton of notes, however, on this site that you'll find very handy. Most of them are going to be in this section right here. That is going to be under lectures. So, any other questions before we proceed forward? No? Okay, let me stop this segment. I'm sorry? I don't have the exam in front of me, actually. They took my exam and they're making copies of it. And the administration is actually administering the exam, so I don't have any say in what time it starts or what time it will take you about 2 hours, maybe, hour and a half, 2 hours. Count on in, if it starts at 3, 4, 5, probably get out by 5, that's what I'm thinking. You don't expect it to be like 15 minutes. It's not going to. There's 25 multiple choice and 15 non-multiple choice, short answer.
1 question, 1 point.
Correct. 40 questions, 1 point per question. I'm going to finish up whatever I don't cover today. Any more questions? These are good questions, yeah?
We will not have any questions from what we did today and what we will do tomorrow.
What we're doing today is the map stuff, and we're doing some of the questions related to content providers that we're going to see a little bit of overlap with. We've covered all the material that's on the exam. What we're going to cover next is going to be files and using content providers and shared preferences and shared things among the phone. More utilities, like the stuff on threading is not on the exam, but it's more of the, after you know the basics, this is what you should be doing. Maps and Google Map services and things like that is a little bit above the basics kind of stuff. The exam is focused on the basics, so nothing of any of the APIs or anything that we'll be looking at today. Good question. Anything else? If you think of some, you can always ask me. We still have another day for the exam.
Will you be here during the exam?
I will be here during the exam, yes. I know some teachers leave during the exam. I don't know why. Like the other guy next door wasn't even there for his last weekend. Doesn't mean I'm going to give you answers, huh? It's not like I'm going to post an answer key. Is this the answer to the question?